How'd you like to listen to .NET Rocks with no ads? Easy. Become a patron. For just $5 a month, you get access to a private RSS feed where all the shows have no ads. $20 a month will get you that and a special .NET Rocks patron mug. Sign up now at patreon.netrocks.com. Hey, guess what? It's .NET Rocks. We're back. I'm Carl Franklin. That's my friend Rich Campbell.
Hey, man.
Hey, man, what's happening?
We're cheating here because I think this show had some scheduling challenges, so we're recording it right before we publish it. We have a few shows that are already in the can from our great trip bombing around Europe. Well, you and I were together in Porto and got a bunch of good shows, which folks are going to hear.
Yeah.
But we're recording out of order because time shifting.
That's right.
Hey, but I'm at home and I like home. Home is very nice. Sitting by the ocean.
I love home.
Yeah. I'm a big fan.
As you can see, my new home.
Yeah, you're in your studio.
The studio that I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah. You love those red walls, man. That's a thing for you.
I love the red walls and the dim lights. Okay. Let's kick it off with Better Know Framework. Run it.
Awesome. All right, man. What do you got?
So our friends at Soliance have been working with large language models before ChatGPT was even a thing. So Zoiner Tejada, as you know, has been working with AI stuff since long time ago. So anyway, Joel Hewlin has been working on this project, and he announced it on his LinkedIn page. It's called Foundation LLM. And it's basically, the goal is to make it very easy for anyone to create copilots.
Nice.
Without, having to figure all the low-level stuff out.
So a higher level of abstraction?
Yes. Yep. Trustworthy and secure enterprise copilots. And so what I've done is I've linked to the press release, which has a link to the website, of course. And this is show 1870. So if you go to 1870.pwop.me, that'll take you there and you can read all about it. These guys are brilliant. I mean,
yeah, well,
no doubt about it.
And Cyprian was involved, and Cyprian is crazy smart. Like, holy man.
He is crazy smart and also a little crazy.
Yeah, a little crazy. Well,
yeah. You guys and your quantum stuff.
When Cyprian and I get together, it becomes a little storm. It becomes an interesting storm.
Yeah. Black holes collide.
Well, he's more the science guy. I'm more the engineering guy. So it goes fast. That's what I'll say.
Yeah. All right. So that's what I got. Know it, learn it, love it. Who's talking to us today, Richard Campbell?
In honor of our guest, I grabbed a comment off of show 1787, which is not a show done with Jeff Fritz. But I know that, Jeff and I did we did a show with him a while back on static websites. And this is actually a comment from the static website show we did with Stacy Cashmore. And I grabbed this particular comment because Stacy couldn't answer it, but I think Jeff could. This comment comes from Rob Garner, longtime listener. Hey, Rob, how you doing?
Rob.
I know you don't think you need another music to code by. You've got a few. But he wrote this comment. He said, "This was an awesome episode. I've been working on a static web app with Azure Functions application for a startup, and it's been very helpful to confirm that I'm on the right track, the way that Stacy positioned it. I'm also contemplating using this in the community college.net course that I teach. But Azure always scares me for student use because I'm afraid of them getting a big accidental bill. I wish I had a bulletproof workflow to make sure that we don't end up with charges for students."
Wow.
And I'm like, Rob, that's a brilliant idea. And I'm going to ask a guy who doesn't work in Azure to fix it for us. But we'll lay it over to Jeff when we get him on there. And like I said, long-time listener, a great contributor to the community, teaches people to do software development all the time. Big fan of yours, Rob. Thanks so much for everything you do. And even though you don't really need another copy of Music to Code By, if anybody else would like one, write a comment on the website at .netrocks.com or on the Facebooks. We publish every show there. And if if you comment there and everybody in the show, we'll send you a copy of Music to Go By.
You know what I love, Richard? I love when we're doing these live shows and you read that live and people, their mouths just drop. Like,
that happened in Porto, didn't it?
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened in Porto. We ripped the whole thing out, and I did my usual patter, and then you look out at the room. You're the one who called it out. I didn't even call it out, but they were all bug-eyed.
They're bug-eyed.
What?
Yeah, they're like, you really do that every time?
Every time.
Well, you can follow us on Twitter if you like. That's fine. We're still there, but the cool kids are hanging out on Mastodon. I'm at Carl Franklin at techhub.social.
And I'm Rich Campbell at mastodon.social.
Yeah, send us a toot. We read them. And we might even read them on the air. Might actually end up with you getting a copy of Music to Code By. So do that. All right, Jeff Fritz, you're here. I don't know as if you need an introduction, but I can go back in time a little bit. We first met you at Tech Ed somewhere for Speaker Idol, which I believe you won, or you came in runner-up or something, but it was a JavaScript testing.
No, I came in dead last.
All right. Well, I loved it.
I think he face-planted, as I recall.
I've been a fan of yours ever since. I thought it was great. It was a JavaScript testing framework, and this was
right.
2000 something.
2012.
Yeah.
And I think I'd actually seen you'd seen it the year before, and it was like, I got to do that.
Yes.
And I said, I think you asked me, and I said, listen, the trick, if we always recruit the same way out of Tech Ed, you have to submit a talk or more, get turned down, easy to do at Tech Ed, and then come to the show anyway.
Yeah.
Because I don't have T&E.
It's always interesting that I'll introduce myself to folks at Microsoft, and there's a thing at Microsoft when you meet new employees or whatever. There's always a question of how long have you been with the company? How did you get your start with Microsoft? And I just casually mention, I lost a game show.
Yeah. But it's testament to the power of that little thing.
That game show. Yeah.
Speaker Idol. 5 minutes to do a talk, and you get, even the people that didn't win got noticed by Microsoft. Now you work there.
Oh, yeah. And I do.
Yeah.
And you did. And it was.
Yeah. So you're on the ASP.NET team, and Blazor is your thing, right?
I am on the .NET, and we call it the .NET and Visual Studio community team. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, but you're Mr. Blazor over there.
I do. I talk a lot about Blazor and building demos and writing some of the training material that folks get on Microsoft Learn.
And you've done a whole lot of stuff live on Twitch
over the years.
Might be, I think I'm closing in on 1,000 episodes on Twitch.
That's awesome.
So it'll be 5 years for me this November.
That's a faster cadence than we got to 1,000. That's for sure.
There was a time in there where I was doing 4 streams a week.
Yeah, that's a lot of work, man.
That's a lot.
When we publishing 3 shows a week was tough. Yeah, but you clearly
it was.
Hey, I do want to call back to Rob's comment because I do think there's a whole section for teachers in Azure, isn't there? Like a bunch of services around that.
There is. You can absolutely, as a teacher, as an educator, you can get in touch with us. There are plans that you can sign up for, but I want to make sure that folks also know, particularly if you're using Azure Static Websites, there's a free plan in there that you can use. Like free. You have a limit as to how much Azure Functions work happens.
Right.
But the static content that it's serving, free.
Yeah.
No issues.
Not free as in, this is free as in beer. Like this is
this
is not the funny kind of free.
Not free like a puppy.
Right.
No.
But also the point is that you can configure the count. So it's like, as soon as I have a charge, just turn me off.
Yes. That's right. There's budget limitations that you can configure on your account. It's real easy to dial that up and down to however much you're comfortable with.
Right.
And you'll get alerts as you reach certain thresholds, nearing that
dollar amount, even if that dollar amount is 0.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, and it's great. I thought that was the answer, but I thought I'd rather have it come from a Microsoft person so they have somebody to go after rather than me.
That's right.
Because if you can't chuck a blue badge under the bus, who can you chuck?
Now I've got a target on my chest. Thank you so much.
We're here to help, Jeff. We really are.
That was a career advancing move.
There you go.
We just did. There you go.
So .NET Conf is coming up here.
Woo!
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's my favorite time of the year.
Tell me something. I mean, .NET Conf is very popular and people tune in, and I guess it was born during the pandemic, maybe?
No. Even before that.
Pre-pandemic.
Okay.
So .NET Conf started as MVC Conf way back in the day.
Oh, right.
And we were connecting folks and dialing them in using the old Windows phone calling software. It was
Wow.
Are you trying not to say Skype? Is that what you're doing?
No, it was even before Skype.
Oh my God.
The old Windows meeting software.
But I guess what I'm saying is it sort of took off during COVID, didn't it? During the pandemic.
No, not it. It was actually taking off before then.
Okay.
We were in great
wrong
shape.
twice today.
Oh no! It's something we aren't with .NET Conf. We aren't out there publishing the numbers and showing trends on how it's growing. We definitely saw a peak in the 2020 .NET Conf edition because it was such a point where, you know what, folks weren't going to events anyway.
Yeah.
And we were able to bring everybody in and put them in that comfortable event that we all know and love. And that's been around now for, I think this is the 13th edition of the event.
What's your thoughts as to people tuning in online to .NET Conf versus going to in-person conferences that Microsoft does?
I think there's a place for both. However, the presentation of an all virtual event like .NET Conf has immense reach. Everybody in the world can participate. Right. And that's something that we strive to make sure that everybody has access to, and that we really want everybody to be a part of and to feel welcome into, to the point that we go 32 hours straight from 9 a.m. on day 2, all the way through to 5 p.m. Pacific times, of course, 5 p.m. Pacific on day 3. That way, over that 32 hours, everybody's going to get a slice of the day that is on their time zone, that is in their normal daylight hours, so they don't have to wake up in the middle of the night in order to tune in and see what's going on.
Well, I've always liked this mix of, it's the launch of the next version of .NET, which has been true the past, 3 years. But then also it's the community part of let's go around the world. And it's this, hey, we're coming to you from such and such a location all the way around. That to me is the coolest bit.
Yeah.
And there's those couple of hardcore guys, right? I'm thinking of the Elderts of the world that try and watch the whole 24 hours.
There are a few folks that we will see hanging out there through the entire stream. And it's amazing that they're hanging through, but you don't need to. It's all recorded. It's all going to be made available on YouTube later.
So do you do 8 hours live, like on the West Coast, and then repeat those overnight? Or is there always something being streamed live and always from the West Coast?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
So day 1, we're going to be live streaming all of day 1. So it's actually 9 hours on day 1 because we have an hour-long keynote right up at the front.
Right.
After that's over, we'll issue a repeat. We'll have some repeat playback through the evening, broadcast from the West Coast of the United States.
Okay.
When we get to day 2, we'll have 8 hours being broadcast mostly live from the West Coast. There's a couple of folks that are going to be dialed in and presenting remotely.
Got it.
But at the end of day 2, air quotes, it's weird doing air quotes on the radio. I need to figure out a way to do that. And
Don't we all?
So at the end of day 2, so we hit 5 p.m. Pacific time, we switch over and we'll have community folks that are broadcasting from everywhere in the world. So, of course, we're going to pick up with folks on the West Coast, anywhere on the West Coast of the United States, Canada, Mexico, South America, folks in Hawaii, and we start picking up with folks in Australia and the East Coast of Asia. We've even got speakers coming into us from China this year. So we're really looking forward to folks everywhere being able to connect in and present live all night long. No recorded content. However, if there is content that folks aren't entirely interested in. There might be a slightly different topic. We have other folks that didn't quite make the cut for live presenting, or that weren't available to present live, that we typically would have released as pre-recorded content, but instead we decided this year, let's publish and have a premiere of their content live on YouTube as the event goes on. So it'll almost be like room 2 happening over there, and there'll be subject matter experts hanging out in chat of those broadcasts to help out with answering questions and foster some of the conversation that happens there.
That's very cool. And of course, YouTube can, translate into immediately into any language. So you've got captions for anybody speaking any language.
Absolutely. So
do you ever get people that say, can you have presentations in my language?
We tried that a couple years ago. We tried saying, hey, you know what? If you're a local speaker that has a different native language and you'd like to use your language, go ahead. It wasn't well received by the audience during those few sessions. So we stick to English for the presentations, and then we'll have translations available afterwards.
Interesting. Yeah. We're just not that far away from the technology being good enough that you might hear it real time translated audibly too. But, I have heard over and over again, it's like folks like hearing it in the native language and then maybe subtitled or something else like that.
Yeah. So I know if I'm watching a TV show and it's, let's say it's a cooking show from Brazil, and you can hear them speaking Portuguese very low, and then there are Americans that have, or English speaking people that do the overlay, and I never like it as much because I don't like that. If somebody's going to overdub. I don't want to hear both languages and one more quiet. I don't know. What do you think of that?
Well, didn't we see a little bit of an experiment with this from the Netflix folks with the Squid Game shows?
Yeah.
Where it was available both as dubbed into your local language or as the original Korean with subtitles. I did like the dubbed in version of that. Just
Really?
Because I got to focus on the action. Such an action oriented series like that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have to read as much as a English.
But could you hear the Korean low volume in the background at the same time?
I can't remember.
Yeah. That's what drives me nuts. It's just noise because I don't speak Korean. That's why I'm listening in English. Anyway, it's really cool what .NET Conf has done, and I know Richard's been involved in it a couple of times. And what's your involvement this year, Richard?
I occasionally, because I'm local, relatively speaking, I can drive down, grab a night in a hotel, or stay with a friend. I will take a shift, calling out the various talks, like basically doing the MC gig, typically
The VJ.
Yeah, the 4-hour bit. And, as is true of all MC gigs, it's pretty easy. Like, you call out the sponsors, you talk about the next thing, you do a handoff right up until something goes wrong. And you've always got that little voice piece in your ear. And so then the director says, hey, next talk's not ready. Fill for 5. And off you go.
And you, as I do too, have a lot of experience in just tap dancing when things go wrong, don't we?
Yeah, no, we have a lot of practice.
Yeah, I think that those rough edges around a live event like this are what make it so interesting, because
I agree.
Right, we're developers. We want to see how things are put together. We want that experience of knowing that, hey, the folks that are broadcasting and presenting, we're real people too, and we're out there for folks to interact with and respond to. There's always lots of great interactions through social media for .NET Conf.
Right. Yeah. And that's the other job of the MC, is to pull the questions from the board and send them to the guests. And I've also had that experience where in a fill, it's like, here's a couple of questions that are not necessarily ready to that guest, but I can answer them. And I'd go. And I'll fully admit to pulling hey, I don't actually work for Microsoft, so I suspect I could answer this question differently than a Microsoft person would. And off I go on that one too.
Yeah, there's a couple of those questions that come in.
Sometimes they come in. Yeah, it's sort of the reality of triaging a Q&A.
Yeah.
I want to get back to this idea of how the landscape has changed for Microsoft development outreach, since the advent of internet video and everything. Before Channel 9, the regional directors sort of had the job of distributing information from Microsoft to the local communities. And that's why we were called regional directors. Because our job, we had one job, and that is they did a local events, in different regions every year called Dev Days. And the regional director's job was to do a keynote, often with hardware, right? They would send you boatloads of machines and stuff, and you would have to run through the demo and a script and everything. And your job was to sort of be that liaison between Microsoft and the community. But that was before YouTube, before Channel 9. When Channel 9 came around, I think the job and Dev Days kind of stopped, right? And so the regional directors were like, well, Microsoft regional director, we don't work for Microsoft. We don't have a region. We don't direct anything. What do? We struggled to find our role in how we could help Microsoft. So then, of course, Channel 9, boom, right? And people were tuning in and watching. I love Channel 9 because it was, somebody would just take a video camera into Scott Guthrie's office and just sit down and chat with him. What are you working on? It was very, very informal. And I think people kind of like that. But then, as we get to .NET Conf and its various previous incarnations,
yep,
it really just went to a whole new level. So, just as an aside, Channel 9, does it still exist?
It's not quite the same. The studios are there. They're not quite broadcasting and putting together frequent content like they were. More or less, you see their output on the various Microsoft branded YouTube channels.
Yeah, and that's smart.
I mean, not even United uses the term Channel 9 anymore, right? Like that's where it came from, was this idea that you used to be able to listen in to what the pilots were talking about on the flights.
That's right.
And that seemed to be the intent of that.
Yeah.
So we know .NET Conf is about .NET 8. So there's going to be a keynote. I imagine you're going to talk a little bit about .NET 8, but what else can we expect?
So we tinkered with something last year. We try and experiment every year with the event, trying new things. We want to get more folks involved. We want to get more folks excited about things happening with .NET. So last year, we tried this idea of an education zone. A student hub that gets folks that are new to .NET introduced and exposed to some of the various things that are going on around the product. And it went very well last year.
Nice.
So that's coming back. This is a day 0 event. So .NET Conf starts on November 14th. But on November 13th, we're going to have this, I believe it's a 6-hour series of streams that folks are going to be able to watch all around artificial intelligence, web apps, mobile apps, and game development.
Now, is this specifically for students?
It's named Student Zone, but it's really for anybody who's new to .NET.
Okay, yeah. So it's almost like for novices.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Very cool.
So, but you don't want to call it the novice zone because you don't want folks to feel like it's, I don't know. But Student Zone makes it feel like, yeah, I'm a student. I'm learning. I'm a beginner who wants to get involved and see what this is all about in a very friendly environment that makes it easy to ramp up. So lots of great speakers that we have talking about all of that content. You can find a link to the Student Zone if folks are interested. You can sign up and register.
Yeah, I've grabbed the link and stuck it in the show notes here. So
thank you so much.
Yeah, here to help. But yeah, beginner friendly area, right? Because I do think that .NET Conf, if you're not an experienced .NET person, .NET Conf goes off like a gunshot. Like we're up and running. It's like, and especially when you talk about .NET 8, like you're talking about the 8th version of .NET, 24 years in, like there's just a lot of stuff. Like if you were, it's good that the day ahead to sort of get folks that are newer stable and say like, this is what you can expect. Here's the important bits you need to worry about. Like in some ways, I think you're super lucky for just coming to .NET now. There's a whole lot of pain you're never going to experience.
Oh yeah. It was a painful trip getting here.
It was. And .NET Conf is in that place where it's really more of a training event for folks that are adjusting and moving forward with the current versions of .NET. .NET 7, .NET 8. We're going to be talking a lot about all kinds of features across both of those versions during the event. But if you're a beginner who's just getting in, that day 0 is going to ramp you up quickly, give you pointers to where you can go to learn more information, and hopefully get you to a place that you're more comfortable and ready to hear what's happening with the rest of the event on days 1, 2, and 3.
Now, that being said, how much are we going to talk about large language models those days?
Not much.
I'm not going to complain because, boy, oh boy, it's kind of overwhelmed everything lately. Like, it'd be nice to talk about something else.
It has. We would absolutely need to talk about that. We need to touch on artificial intelligence, large language models. That's absolutely something that folks want to learn about.
Yeah.
But you know what? Folks still got to build websites.
Yeah.
Mobile apps, native applications on Windows, services, cloud scale applications, IoT devices. We're going to cover all of that during the event.
Good.
Yeah, that's great.
But that's just, I think about the content tree for .NET Rocks being a similar problem space.
Oh, yeah.
Plus maybe a little more politics than necessarily what a Microsoft event would get into, like the impacts of open source, that kind of thing. But if you work in C#, there's stuff for you. If you're dealing with Blazor, there's stuff for you. Like all of these things. Like I'm trying to decide what tags to put into this show, and it's like, I think it's all of them.
All the tags.
It's all the tags.
Yeah. We're going to touch on a lot of things.
Yeah.
I actually, I put together a list of 10 sessions that I think are must watch.
Okay.
For folks, the typical folks that are going to be watching, .NET Conf. Now, if you're more focused on web than other technologies, you may adjust this, but I put together a list of 10 sessions that I think are going to be really good to tune in.
All right. But before you go down that list, we should break for this very important message.
Yeah.
Oh, I could use a snack.
And we're back. Jeff's got his snack, and it's .NET Rocks. I'm Richard Campbell. That's Carl Franklin.
Hey.
Those munching noises you hear are Jeff Fritz. We're talking a little bit about
Thanks, guys.
about .NET Conf. And okay, what are the cannot miss sessions of .NET Conf?
All right. Now, I'm a little biased because I'm a bit of a web developer. Okay. I'm a lot biased. Okay. So here we go. The top 10 list of that I put together that I really want to watch. Number 1 with a bullet. It's easily the one of the most popular sessions every year. What's new in C# 12 with Mads Torgerson and Dustin Campbell.
Yeah. All right. So the people who bring you the new version of C#, what we've been up to the past year.
Right? Like, okay, yeah, show me all the cool new stuff I can do with the language, because that's important.
Yeah. And we were just in Europe and saw Mads in Warsaw talking. He has pieces of that he fit into an hour for the Warsaw audience. So absolutely, it's amazing to see 12 versions of a language, and definitely from the people who are making it.
Oh, yeah. The second session that I recommend folks check out is Packing Light with VS Code and C# Dev Kit with Burke Holland and Leslie Richardson.
Interesting.
I am a big fan of C# Dev Kit and VS Code because a couple months a year I spend dedicated in Linux writing code. In Linux, I want to do my C# development, Blazor, ASP.NET development, working with Azure. On a Linux machine, I want to spend a month or 2 on my Mac and get outside the friendly confines of Visual Studio. And VS Code and C# Dev Kit are so cool to use in those environments. So I want to make sure that folks check that out, because it really is a nice experience.
And not to just derail things here, but what's your response to? So C# Dev Kit, we don't need Studio anymore, right? Like, this is the end of Studio?
It's not the end of Studio. It's right. C# Dev Kit just gives you the way to organize your code the same way you do in Studio. And it gives you that same language server feature that you had in Studio that is really robust, really clean, and quite frankly, at high speed like you're used to in Visual Studio. There's all kinds of other features in Visual Studio that you aren't even touching yet with VS Code.
I've also found, I've been talking to a few groups now who were using it before it was in general release, and it was, we have team members who are typically web developers who've never worked in Studio. They don't want to work in Studio, and they couldn't see the project. They were working on their own stuff, but it was always a bit of an integration problem when it came down to the overall suite of things. So making them sort of full citizens of the project seemed like a great compliment. Like that's a good thing.
As folks are discovering how projects and solutions work together that we've been accustomed to in Studio for decades now, they're getting the organization of that and going, aha, yes, this makes sense to me now.
Yeah. Right. So just more people able to work together. I like that, and it's a great feature.
Yeah.
Do the Visual Studio proper project templates map over? Can you actually open those? Like, can I create a new Blazor web app and it already has all the stuff put in there?
Yes, it does. Because the .NET templates are coming off of the .NET CLI. So it loads up and sees, and they have the shared template model.
Beautiful.
Now. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Blazor,
you
and I are doing a little something at .NET Conf.
We are. We'll be talking about Blazor puzzles. The game show segment of the third day, we'll be pausing and talking about a few Blazor puzzles for folks, getting into .NET 8 with Blazor.
So BlazorPuzzle.com is a new show that Jeff and I are doing. The episodes are like 10, 12 minutes each. And we posit a problem. We say, here's some simple code. Why doesn't it work? Or, implement feature X or something along those lines. It's a puzzle. And, as I say, we got 10 or 11 episodes out there, and we're going to be doing one live at .NET Conf. Maybe we'll do 2 or 3, or maybe revisit one. Not sure. But we're going to do something good.
Definitely got to do a callback to a past one. That's a great idea. And just see how people responded to it.
And then maybe the new puzzle could be, okay, now do this in .NET 8.
There you go.
Yeah.
Number 3.
All right. So number 3, I have .NET Loves AI with John Maeda and Scott Hanselman.
Who's John Maeda?
Wow.
So John Maeda is actually an artificial intelligence luminary. This guy's been around the artificial intelligence field for years, and he was embedded with MIT. He's been working at a number of organizations promoting and diving into really some of the foundational things that we take for granted in the AI field today.
Interesting. So
they're going to be talking about some of the things that we can do from a very wide scope with artificial intelligence in .NET.
Is he relatively recent to Microsoft?
He is. He's only been with us for just a few years, but making a big difference in how we engage and promote AI across all the products across Microsoft.
I mean, I just like that that Microsoft is building out this cadre of folks who've been involved in this space a lot longer than ChatGPT's been around. So it's just a bunch of technologists running around, but like kind of best and brightest. He was one of the 21 people you need to know for the 21st century.
Yeah. How about that? Huh?
Like, that's a heck of a list from Forbes. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So, okay, that
just being on a Forbes list is serious cred.
That's one thing right there. But yeah, no, he kind of, that's really interesting. So, okay, that's definitely worth a grab.
All right. Next one is improving application telemetry with .NET 8 and open telemetry. Noah Falk and Sam Spencer are talking about this.
Oh, wow.
Taking our logging to the next level, really, right? I mean, when you're logging messages from your applications, you want to have that caught and displayed somewhere, and there's all kinds of tools that do that. But open telemetry really is that gateway that's going to make it available to be displayed anywhere. So I want to see this one and learn about how I can use things like Prometheus with my .NET applications.
Interesting.
Steal the fire. Steal the fire. Sorry, I had to say that.
After that, there's .NET container advancements in .NET 8. Our friends Chet Husk and Richard Lander are talking about this. I feel like the container story just gets better and better each year. .NET 7, you can build directly into containers. Now even more advancements with our containers getting smaller and better across not just x86, x64 processors, but ARM processors. So I can deploy to machines running ARM, like my Raspberry Pis, Really cool stuff.
Yeah, to me, the big thing about running in containers is I want to be sure that my software causes no side effects and is impacted by no side effects.
It's taking that cookie cutter works on my machine application, and it's going to work the same everywhere else.
Yeah, sure. When you put it in a container, what you're saying is it works on my machine because it's my machine, right? Like you're literally in a container that says there's nobody else here but me. I live alone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. So I want to talk about another AI session for number 6 here.
Okay.
Create an enterprise Copilot extension for Visual Studio Code through Semantic Kernel. This is with Kinfei Lo. So now we're talking about helping make Visual Studio Code better with your own syntax, your own content. I like that.
What's Semantic Kernel?
So Semantic Kernel is a tool that lets you build your own model, your own capabilities to interact with and train so that you can then get answers to questions appropriately for whatever topic it is that you're working on.
So I guess it's a higher level of abstraction than working directly with models and training. And
yeah. The short answer would be it's generating your own chat GPT.
Right.
But there's more functionality that you can dial into it besides just ask it a question. You can actually hand off to functions and things that'll perform computation.
Well, maybe similar to foundational LLM.
Yeah, sounds all along the same lines.
Along the same lines, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not a bad thing.
Nope.
My big concerns with web development are what are leading me into number 7. I'm always concerned about performance. Number 7 is improve your ASP.NET Core web app performance with Azure Cache for Redis. I feel like we as an industry need to get on board the Redis bandwagon here because, oh my Lord, will it make your applications better? If you're hitting a database, if you're doing any kind of caching, don't just do output caching. Cache with Redis.
Right.
Catherine Wang and Mark Gravel are going to be talking about this. I want to see what they've got and learn more about how I can use Redis better in my applications.
You know,
sounds great.
I'm thinking about MS OpenTech back in the day, 2012 to 2014. And that was one of the very first projects they were talking about. .NET needs to be a first class client for Redis. Right. Yeah. And for Elastic, like it was those kinds of these very successful platform pieces before we were really doing cloud platform the way we are. And just the recognition that they came from the open source community and that it wasn't easy to use them through .NET. You had to jump through a lot of hoops. No. And so, MS OpenTech made that come true. What I like about these particular talks is like, it's almost eat your vegetables too, right? This is not just like these are new bits because it's .NET 8, but it's like, hey, while you're thinking about the new bits, have you picked up the stuff that's been important for a while and maybe you just haven't looked at it? Because this stuff's important. You do not need to solve caching. It is a solved problem. It is very solved. Incredibly smart people have tackled this. You just need to learn it.
And in a half an hour session, you're going to be on the road to success.
Get your feet under you anyway. And then you're already online. So go read further.
Yeah.
Number 8, I'm always working with database in my applications, and I need to spend more time with Cosmos. So number 8 is building planet-scale.NET apps with Azure Cosmos DB. From Justine Kochi, I believe is how you pronounce Justine's name there. Cosmos has a handful of different models that you can use. Not just NoSQL with MongoDB like bindings, but you can use Postgres in there. There's a graph database that you can use in there, and you can pivot and use all these things. I can't wait to hear from Justine as they get us in and ramped up with Cosmos for .NET developers.
So it's the thing that makes Cosmos Cosmosy is that it's pushed to the edge, right?
Pushed to the various regions around Azure. Yeah.
But it's at that last mile, like it's close to where you are rather than some, server in a data center somewhere.
But you still need to have an application that's out there on those data centers near it if you want to take full advantage of it. Sure.
Yeah. I also look at it as architected for the write centrally, read remotely sort of distributed model, which again, you can roll your own and there's other open source libraries, but like this is a platform built that way from scratch. So you don't need to own any of the bits. Just call it. And it basically has a MongoDB interface, a calling interface to it. Like if you're building it, the migration from Mongo to Cosmos is trivial.
And because they've got bindings for Postgres in there also, you can use a Postgres API as well.
Right.
So there's a handful of APIs in there, not just Mongo and Postgres.
Yeah.
Like I said, GraphDB as well. Really cool stuff for folks to check out. Number 9, I'm going to go a little bit outside the box here. Folks are always looking at and saying, hey, check out all the cool frameworks that Microsoft ships with .NET. But there's other user interface frameworks that you got to check out. And I want to call out a session about Uno Platform.
Yay for Uno. I love those guys.
Yeah. So this is called Elevate Your Cross-Platform .NET Development with .NET 8 from Nick Randolph and Francois Tanguay.
Oh, those are the senior folks there.
Yeah,
at Uno
I want to learn more about Uno and how I can use that, because while I like using .NET MAUI, I'm always open to learning other frameworks, other tools that work with .NET.
Sure.
It's great to have options and other folks that are building and helping the entire community.
Yeah, without a doubt. And it's one of those, one of those great things that there's more than one way to solve this. Those guys came from the UWP place, and then got all into WA. Like they've done some cool stuff. It's great to see them on board.
They have.
I agree.
And, we made a lot of shows in that space, not just Uno, but Avalonia and so forth, for exactly that reason, that like there's not one way to solve this problem. So
you know what? My last session I'm going to recommend is a similar third-party framework that I think is in a topic that's fun and something that we can all kind of sink our teeth into and learn a little bit about. And it's about using C# with Godot to make games from Michael Hawker.
Do you have to wait for Godot though?
Oh, jeez. I knew that one was coming. Yep. Holy man.
We could be sitting here a long time. Just saying.
So Godot is an open source framework, really cool stuff to help build games. It's really gotten a lot of attention over the last month or so with some of the changes that have happened to Unity. Folks have been checking out and exploring Godot a bit. Really cool stuff to hear from Michael talking about how we can get started with Godot. So I'm looking forward to learning more about that during our sessions.
That sounds good. I'm going to take a look at that one.
Yeah, it's good. And it's good to have some alternatives. Poor old Unity.
No tears shed for Unity here.
Well, I get what was going on. It cost the CEO his job. There you go.
There you
go. Well, we don't like that. But there it is.
All right. That was a heck of a list of 10. What are you going to be doing?
What am I going to be doing? So what
do you do?
I'm the producer. I got to make sure that this thing is running. So I typically have a seat in the studio just off camera where I'll be watching, moderating, coordinating with the technical director and audio engineers to make sure that everything's running soundly. But I'll pop up hosting for a little bit, for a few hours, and talking with our buddy Carl.
Yeah, right. You guys have got your talk. You are going to take a hosting shift.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, I got to admit, like I've done hosting shifts, and hosting has its own challenges. But the crew behind the whole project, like you can't imagine how many moving parts there are that you don't have to think about when you're hosting. You're just making your marks, calling out the pieces you need to call to, pulling up the right questions and passing them along to the piece that's just been done, and then handing off to the next one. And all of that is done by other folks that are ready to go.
Dude, I've seen at Dev Intersection what Microsoft brought like an entire studio that was behind the screen to do streaming. And I was looking in there's like 20 people. There's like 70 workstations and 100,000 screens. It's just like, whoa.
Wow.
That, I produced and was part of that event, right? That was the Connect event in 2018 that we brought to Las Vegas.
Well, didn't they do full mirroring for that one too? Like that's the step beyond, where every demo being done on stage is also being done behind the stage. So if something went wrong, they would just flip and keep going.
Yeah, like cut right to another machine.
It's like
on pace with it.
Ever since Bill Gates got a blue screen during a keynote, there's been this mirroring mechanism.
Never happen again.
Oh my goodness! And they spend a lot of money to make that true. The rest of us just eat it sometimes.
Oh yes. That's the glory of live coding and live presenting.
Yeah, but I mean, you guys aren't that heavily produced at .NET Conf. Like, I've seen demos go sideways too, right? I mean, some stuff's recorded, some stuff's not, but it's like, hey, it's real life. It's okay.
And right, and that goes back to part of making us human, more realistic, that folks can relate to, because hey, not everything is perfect all the time. We've got some rough edges.
Yeah,
and
developers deal with that every day, right? I mean, you code for an hour and you hit run and you get some bugs and, oh, well, that wasn't supposed to happen. And then you spend most of your time figuring it out.
I remember a DNR TV with, I think it might have been even Hanselman, where you guys were sort of warming up and it went sideways and you left the recorders running, and watching Hanselman dismantle the problem and fixing it turned out to be a better show. Like,
that's, And I remember that he said, no, keep it running. This will be good.
Just keep it going. This will be fun. And right. It's like, how you solve a problem is easily as interesting as demonstrating how something works.
Yeah, I guess the only thing you have to be careful of is that your audience's time, right? If it's a small window of time and they're expecting to see X and they end up seeing you debugging X and never getting to the end of the story.
Well, and that was the advantage with the DNR TV. It was a pre-record.
Yeah.
And so you just rewrote the show description.
Yep.
It's like, hey, instead, let me show you debugging a problem that happened in real time.
But I agree.
So
it's especially good in training, when something happens, if you're live coding and training and you say, do you want to watch me debug this or would you like to move on? And most people will say, no, figure it out. I want to see this.
Yeah.
When things like that happen during my live streams on Twitch, if I can get out of it in 10 to 15 minutes, we'll get out of it. We'll try and solve this.
That's a good rule.
But we'll time box it, and if I go too long,
then you just skip ahead, move on.
We're going to move on, and I'll fix this off stream.
I did that video series with the studio team, and I where I talked to Leslie Richardson about the debugger. And really that series was about, hey, do you remember just how good these things are? And the debugger by far my favorite one, because the debugger in studio is unbelievably good. And Leslie made this awesome point. It's like, who teaches debugging? Like almost all of us learned it looking over someone's shoulders. Yeah, well, who reads crash dumps is like, only Tess. We give it to Tess.
Tess Ferrandes does.
She could do that. Yeah. But
the debugger for Visual Studio is so good and so user friendly that you don't really need instructions to use it.
Yeah, for a certain layer of features. When you get deeper into, like, it'll help you all the time, but boy, when you know more about it, it's way cleverer than you realize. Like, its ability is shocking.
Oh, yes.
I wish we taught it more. Maybe, I think I'm well positioned to solve that problem, aren't I? Maybe I'll pursue that talk for DevInt. We should do it. I can't tell you the last time we did a show on .NET Rocks about debugging.
Yeah.
Actually, I believe Leslie's talking about the debugger at Dev Intersection this December.
Yeah. You're right. She will be. That's great. So, and again, it's like, maybe we need a debugging one-on-one talk. It's just like, hey, okay, let's really take this. Same way that Kathleen takes C# out for a spin. And it's like, hey, have you tried using it this way? Have you tried this feature? Maybe you still use this technique. That's a few versions ago. Look at this.
So our friend Bill Wagner is actually giving a session at .NET Conf called Everyday C#.
From the guy who wrote the book.
Exactly. Bill's going to dive into, here's some of the latest updates and how you may want to shift the way and bring shift the way you write code and bring your approach a little bit more current, because the new features that are available will allow you to write less code that runs faster.
And easier to read too, like simpler.
Yes.
A little less interpretation problem. And his book was Effective C#, so it makes sense that he'd talk about that. But it's something I bugged Mads about ages ago. It's like, hey, how do you stop people from using it the old way when you built the new ways? And it's like, well, that's what tooling's all about. Like trying to make
analyzers help with that.
Yeah.
To be sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, let's not forget, writing code isn't just about making the machine do things fast, but it's about letting those human eyes that are going to read your code next know what your intent
even
was.
If they're your own eyes. Because a week later, I'm like, who wrote this? Oh, wait, it's me. No wonder.
That's right.
Speaking of a week later, what's your plans after .NET Conf? Are you going to take a vacation?
So I've got all the post-event wrap-up stuff. We've got to send out reports and things and let everybody know how we did, all that good stuff. I'm going to vacate. I'm going to take a couple weeks off to be sure, but then we've got Dev Intersection in December.
Orlando.
And then I'll be taking the rest of the year off.
Right. But I will see you in Orlando.
Yes.
Well, if
yes,
on your
indeed.
vacation you find yourself traveling north to New York or Boston, you definitely should stop by.
So I've got an interesting problem with vacation because my daughter is in the marching band at Penn State University.
Yeah, I see the posts on
and
Facebook.
yeah,
Great.
Really excited for her. And if the football team's doing well, we might be traveling to see how they do and how the band is doing with them.
Are they still doing bowls?
Oh, yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
That'd be amazing.
So,
your daughter participating in a bowl? That's astonishing.
So even if they don't make the national championship playoff, they'll be in a bowl game. And based on where they're ranked right now here in November 2023, we should see them probably playing on New Year's Day.
Do you don't know where yet? Like you don't know which bowl?
Where. We won't.
So it's like I have a plan for New Year's. I'm going somewhere.
Right. This is the challenge is we don't know where they're going until after the last of the conference championship games, which are like beginning of December.
Wow.
Like, okay, you've got 3 weeks. Go. Woo!
Yeah. It's almost like go block hotel rooms at a bunch of bowl locations just in case.
Yeah. There'll be blocks of rooms set aside for various, fans and alumni.
Old school America, just hop in an RV.
Yeah. Dun, dun, dun.
Who would do that? Who would hop in an RV and drive across the country?
Nobody does that. That's not a thing.
That's crazy. Now, okay, listeners out there, what you don't know, okay, now I'm going to take over the podcast for a second. What you don't know is before I got hired for my first job after losing that contest at Tech Ed, was I met these two fellas at an RV stop in Philadelphia, and I brought them cheesesteaks.
That's true.
Yes, you did.
And that conversation led to my first job.
Wow.
In this industry.
Where were we? It was one of the universities that we were doing the show at, as I recall, I think.
The Penn State University was across the way, but it was a Microsoft, office there.
Yeah, that's right. Back in the day. I think that was a 2012 road trip. And wasn't that the one where we were plugging plugging HT box? And you had it was 2015 when you were on the stream when we were working on Already, where you had a tornado warning in the middle of your stream. This is a little too on the point for disaster response, but okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
little on the
why
point.
is it whenever I get involved with a live stream with Microsoft and I'm at home, storms hit?
Tornado warning. I'm like, hey, you know what, Jeff? You don't have to keep streaming. You should go get in the basement. How about that?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Be right back if
I'll be back.
there is a back.
If there's a back.
It's the new normal. All right, man. Hey, this has been a lot of fun. I can't wait to hang out with you at .NET Conf and
absolutely Blazer Puzzle,
Blazer puzzling, and also just to watch the great content and be involved. Loving it.
Oh, I'm excited and looking forward to it. Absolutely.
All right, Jeff. We'll see you later, and dear listener, we'll talk to you next time on .NET Rocks.
Goodbye, everybody.
.NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net and produced by Plop Studios, a full-service audio, video, and post-production facility located physically in New London, Connecticut, and of course in the cloud. Online at pwop.com. Visit our website at dotnetrocks.com for RSS feeds, downloads, mobile apps, comments, and access to the full archives going back to show number 1, recorded in September 2002. And make sure you check out our sponsors. They keep us in business. Now go write some code. See you next time.